All right. Joining me today on Inside the Career is an ex-student of mine, Bhavin. Welcome along, Bhavin. Could you tell us what you're doing at the moment, what your current roles are?
Yeah, thanks, David. So I'm currently working for a barrister named Steve Keel. So I'm his junior lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
So I help him out with a range of things, including court work and document drafting and sort of the things that you would associate with what a lawyer usually does.
Right. Yeah. And
Yeah.
and so what have you been up to today? What's your day look like so far?
Yeah, so it's actually been quite eventful. So in the morning, I filed a document in the district court. Then I appeared in court for a client. Came back to the office, and I was just working on a article that that Steve wants to publish sometime this week. So yeah, it's been quite busy.
And you have to account for your hours, don't you? Do you have to do that every sort of five? I know some lawyers have to account for every sort of minute almost that they. Is it the same for you?
Yeah, so at the two previous firms that I worked at, I did have to account my time in every 6-minute blocks.
Right.
But working for Steve, it's a bit different. It's a bit more relaxed, which is nice.
Totally. Yeah. I don't know how I'd cope with that. There'd be some questions asked, I reckon. So we'll start out. What do you love about your job? Because how long have you been a lawyer for?
So I've actually been a lawyer for 2 days. So I was issued my practicing certificate yesterday.
Oh, congratulations! Awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you. So today's my second day officially of being a lawyer.
Yeah.
Sorry, what was your question, David?
Just what do you love about it? I mean, obviously you can only say so much after 2 days, but you've obviously been doing it for a little while.
But I think the interest in law really formed, I think, during high school, because my favorite subjects were English, history, and economics. And the basis of those subjects is a lot of writing and a lot of reasoning. So I think that idea, along with doing commercial law as one of the majors in my commerce degree, it's
right.
I think those factors contributed to me doing law. Right. And in terms of the job itself, it's actually great to be in a position where you can make a difference in someone's life. I think that's the overarching idea of sort of me being interested in the law.
Yeah, cool. So you've actually just touched on my next question, which is, and you mentioning those subjects at school that you really liked. Can you remember things that you might have developed at Westlake or earlier perhaps at school that you feel have sort of held you in good stead for what you're doing now?
I think the important learnings from secondary school and to an extent university is sort of the character you build and the resilience to sort of get through things. So it's more those soft skills, I think. Your ability to communicate, your ability to write something concisely, and sort of being an all-rounder in the true sense. You know, being able to do different tasks in a period of time.
Yes, yeah. Because you studied commerce at Auckland. Is that right? And was it accounting and commercial law at Auckland?
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah, and then you went to Victoria and did your law degree down there.
Yes.
What can you remember about those two times? I mean, I'm interested in because I studied. Obviously, I grew up in Taranaki, so I had no choice but to go abroad. I went to Vic as well and did law for a little bit, but went in a different direction. But
sure.
So what was that time like for you?
Yeah, I think So first of all, I think the transition from Form 7 to first year uni, I did find difficult because at university there's a lot of independence.
Right.
Lecturers don't take roles or sort of the things that you'd associate with school, you know, like there's
Sure.
no sort of strict timings.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a big challenge for me in my first year. I think looking back, I think it actually took me a year to adapt to the style of university and university life.
Mm.
But I think after second year, I started to get more involved in clubs, um, and then by the third year, I was so involved that I think in a way I replicated what I did in Form 7, where I was so involved in so many sports, so many activities, so many groups,
Yeah.
and that actually, you know, made my university experience more enjoyable.
Yes, yes, and obviously, you know, you've got to an end point, or not an end point now, but you've got somewhere now through your studies at university where you're in a, you know, in a great position, and I think that's a nice little story for people who perhaps go from high school to university, and that first year can be a bit of a transition, can be a
Yeah,
bit tough, and just to stick
yeah,
with it, and
yeah.
you know,
I mean,
it
it's sort
takes a
of
little while, doesn't it?
yeah. I mean, I think there's two sides to it. I think there's people at Form 7 who would like more independence,
Mm,
and once they get to university, they really relish it.
mm, mm,
But for me, it was more of a journey to really embracing that independence. And by my
right.
last year of university, I was so accustomed to university
Yeah.
and what to do, when to do it, and yeah,
Sure,
yeah.
yeah. And what about the benefits for students, do you think, of studying somewhere other than where you grew up, you know, leaving home
Yeah, yeah.
and all of
I
that
would,
stuff?
yeah, I would encourage it. If you have the opportunity to gain independence away from
Mm,
family, go for it. That's
go
my
for it.
advice. Yeah,
Yeah, I'd
because
agree strongly with
yeah,
that. Yeah,
because
yeah.
because more than the academic part of it, it's more the life skills that you
Mm,
gain of
yes,
managing yourself, managing your time. I think those skills are really, really important.
definitely. Yeah. And it's a good time to develop them at that age. It's sort of it's pretty
Yeah,
necessary.
yeah.
Um, what advice or tips might you give to, say, we've got, you know, would have probably students as young as maybe year 11 now, but certainly in year 12 and 13 that are thinking quite seriously about doing
Mm,
law
mm.
next year or the year after, at both our schools, Westlake Boys and Girls. What sort of words of advice might you give to them
Mm.
in terms of I mean, you've sort of touched on why you enjoy the career, so that might be the advice in terms of whether they might like it. But in terms of what might be some of the reasons or ways of being successful at law school, do you think?
Yeah, so everyone who wants to do law, they go through a first year first. So at first year, they have to do 3 courses,
Yeah,
and they have to achieve a certain GPA or grade to get into second year.
right,
So my advice would be, if you do want to study law, try and get into second year, because it's only at second year where you start getting taught what the law is.
right,
Um,
right.
at first year, it's quite generic.
Hmm.
So my advice would be, if you get into second year, experience second year, and then
Yeah,
form a judgment at the end of the year as to
right.
whether you like law or not.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
yeah. Because what's your specialization? Have you gone into a particular area of law, or
So most of the law courses I did at law school had a commercial law bent,
right?
and that's in a way what I'm doing now for Steve Keel.
Okay, yeah.
Um, and in addition to that, it's commercial work combined with a lot of court work. So
Okay.
it's an,
Oh,
it's, it's an
okay.
interesting mix. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, because I've got a question I'll jump to now, which is from one of our students. and he was asking. He's quite interested in the notion of doing law, but he's not.
Yeah, yeah.
He's not particularly. He's not particularly confident as a public speaker, and he was
Okay.
wondering what sort of law jobs were out there that didn't necessarily mean that you had to get up in front of the court and argue your case.
As you go through law school, there are papers or courses which have assessments where you do have to present an argument, and
Right.
it's sort of simulated like a court trial. So you kind of avoid that at law school, and then once you do your professional exams, there's also a public speaking component.
Right.
But when you start looking for jobs, then the traditional jobs at law firms, they don't tend to do a lot of public speaking. It's sort of more paperwork, transactional work. However, if you move into a department called litigation, then that's where public speaking comes into play.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And I know that you're a big cricket fan like myself, and so my next question is just with regards to with just the way that you so far and hope to continue to maintain that sort of balance between work and life, because I know that being a lawyer is a pretty taxing profession at times and requires big hours, long hours, and so forth. So how do you look to do that in your downtime or?
Yeah, so during the summer, I'm a cricket umpire for the Auckland Cricket Association.
Cool.
So I umpire games every Saturday, which I really enjoy because it's something that gets me out of bed, one, and two, it's sort of the mix between law and sports.
Right.
That's the way I see it. And yeah, it's basically a win-win,
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah. And what other things do you do to kind of keep things in perspective and?
To keep things in perspective, I try and get good sleep. I think that's incredibly important. I know that during exam time and things like that, stress levels are high, but it is important to get good sleep. And I encourage that to not only secondary school students, but also university students.
Definitely, yeah.
And I try to get a bit of exercise in, which again I would highly encourage.
Yeah. Well, so as you mentioned right at the start, it's your second official day.
Yes.
How do you see yourself? Do you think in terms of 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the track? Do you have sort of goals that you're looking at this stage, or?
Yeah, so I think for me personally, after I graduated from law school last year, I sort of stumbled, I think, across the idea of doing the traditional law job at an office like this, and then also doing teaching at law school. So I'm a first year tutor at law school.
Yes.
And then also doing umpiring as well. So how I view that is sort of, this is the traditional practice of law, and then with teaching, it's sort of the mix between academia and the law. And then, like I said before, with umpiring, it's the mix between sports and law.
Yes.
So I see it as law being this branch in which there are several jobs and several things that one can do.
Yeah, and potentially you may not even know what they are yet. For instance, politics is a career that it seems to attract a lot of law. People go from law into politics and things like that. So, the future's wide.
I think absolutely, David. I think the more that I experience, the more that I'll learn, and then my goals will change accordingly.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, no, as I say, the future's wide open, as Tom Petty said once in a great song.
That's right, David.
Well, that's kind of the end of the you've absolutely burned through the questions in an incredibly efficient way. Are there any other sort of words of advice or anything you'd like to say to our students that are kind of coming through now?
Yeah. So when I was a seventh former, I just trying to think back to what, 8 years ago now.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So when I was a seventh former, there was a lot of advice about universities, careers, gap years, and things like that.
Mm.
My advice to students who are getting that sort of information is to take in that information, but also know what you want to do.
Sure.
Because it's easy to get lost in that information. But yeah, if you maintain your focus, yet while trying different things out, you will understand what you really want to do, and once you find that passion, go for it.
Sure. Yeah, and be true to yourself, because there'll be a lot of different.
Because you only live one life, so
You do.
you better enjoy what you do.
Yeah. Oh, awesome to catch up with you, Bhavin. Thank you so much for passing on your words of wisdom and everything going well otherwise. I mean, obviously we've all been through a pretty once in a lifetime experience.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
So you've been
stayed home, stayed safe.
Yeah.
Hopefully it doesn't come back.
Hopefully, yeah. We're looking pretty good at the moment. So fingers crossed. Yeah. Awesome, Bhavin. I really appreciate it, mate.
Hey, it was my pleasure, David.
Thank you for talking to us today.
All right.